Now, the title of my sermon this morning is Speeding Towards the New World Order. Speeding Towards a New World Order. Now, the title is not meant to sensationalize, but it is what it is. It reflects the current realities as I look at biblical prophecies and the world events. I observe an urgency on the part of the global elites and institutions to reorder the world to a new normal. And this is called the Great Reset. This is called the Great Reset. The word, the Great Reset, has become more and more common. You read it in the papers, you watch it in the media, it is on the lips of a lot of people, and I spoke a little bit about it in the last sermon. Now, in the promo videos and press briefings, these globalists keep emphasizing on seizing the opportunity presented by the COVID-19 crisis to reshape and reset the world. And hence, that's partly inspired me to have this title, Speeding Towards a New World Order. There is the sense of urgency on the part of the global elites to push the world into a certain direction, to reshape and to reset the world. And truth be told, things are moving pretty quickly. Things are moving very, very quickly. Now, today's sermon is a continuation of the last sermon. I can easily put it as part 2 of the One World Government, part 2. But I thought I'd give the title a change, and so we have Speeding Towards a New World Order. Okay, bear in mind that this is a continuation of the previous sermon. Now, I'm continuing with the idea that the world is moving very quickly towards the establishment of a one world government. It is not a conspiracy theory. Okay, I want to tell every one of you, it is not a conspiracy theory. In my last sermon, I show you the World Economic Forum video clip where you heard the head of various global institutions like the UN, IMF, WEF, of course, and OECD, stressing the imperative for a great reset. They have a plan, an elaborate plan, a well thought of plan to reshape geopolitics, international trade and finance, culture, health, and every aspect of life by harnessing science and technology. And they want to do it quickly. They want to do it quickly. I hope that after listening to some of these messages, we'll begin to take note of the current affairs, take note of the current development in the world, so that you don't just hear what I'm saying, okay? And if you just listen from me, it may sound a little bit alarmist, but if you're reading up for yourself, you are clued into what is happening, you realize that there is that sense of urgency, not just being sensed in the spirit of people that are discerning, but by listening to these political leaders, global elites and so on, you get the sense of that urgency. They have the resources and capability, brain power, institutional power, influence, reach, money. Most importantly, they have very powerful people in their ranks, top government officials, seasoned politicians, corporate chieftains, media moguls, and big tech billionaires. These are the people that fill the ranks of the WEF and global institutions. They are the movers and shakers with the ability and the means to move the world in a certain direction. The Great Reset will reorder our world. The New World Order will facilitate the formation of a one world government and the eventual rise of the Antichrist. Now, I want you to know that the scenario I'm presenting is not a wild speculation. It is based on looking at biblical prophecies and the current realities. Now, there is no point in studying eschatology and biblical prophecies, purely on a theoretical basis, and that's what a lot of people are doing. It is good to know what will happen in the future. However, it is more important to know how it will happen, how these prophecies will come to pass, and how the symbols of the toes, the beasts, the horns, and so on translate into the realities that they are supposed to represent. Now, some people might find what I say to be controversial. Maybe they are uncomfortable with me for naming the global institutions like the WEF, the UN, IMF, and so on, and saying that these global institutions are playing a key role in the formation of the one world government, in the setting up of the new world order, and eventually the rise of the Antichrist. Now, I will argue that these things need to be said. These things need to be said. Otherwise, I won't venture to say what I've said in some of the previous sermon and what I'm going to say in today's sermon. Now, I say that because otherwise you will be in the dark. So you read about the Bible prophecies, you're excited about Bible prophecies, you know that certain things are going to happen. However, when things begin to happen right before your very eyes, you don't actually catch it, you don't actually realize it. What then is the point of studying Bible prophecies concerning the last days? It makes absolutely no sense at all. So I'm belaboring this point, which I have said in a different way at the very beginning of this sermon series, simply because the context of preaching biblical prophecy cannot just be on historical context, on the biblical context, and the typical like cultural context and so on. But it has to take into account the context of current developments, current affairs, and what is happening in the world, in our world today. By the way, the Bible has many inconvenient truths. Okay, I'm not sure whether you agree with me, but I'll say this to you. The Bible has many inconvenient truths, and that's why it doesn't go down well with many people, both the religious and the unreligious. These people don't like the truth claims and exertions in the Bible. Now take this verse for example, where Jesus says in John chapter 14 and verse 6, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now this is one of the most important truth claims in the Bible. One of the most important truth claims made by our Lord Jesus Christ. Essentially, Jesus is saying that Christianity is the only true religion, and believing in Jesus is the only way to eternal life. Do you realize that? That is what is encapsulated in this verse. It is power-packed with meaning, okay, and it is considered offensive nowadays in the postmodern world which we are living in today. This critical truth flies in the face of many people. They find it to be offensive. If you believe in this truth and you speak and preach this truth, you are an intolerant bigot. I don't know whether you realize that. If you haven't realized that, it means that you haven't been evangelizing. It means that you haven't been sharing the gospel with people, that you are not taking any risk, making any attempt to share the gospel, to share the testimonies in the Word of God. But despite being offensive, we still have to preach this truth. You know why? Because it is true, and it concerns the destiny of people. It concerns the destiny of your loved ones, of the people that God has put into your oikos, put into your community. It concerns the people that you interact with every day, your colleagues, your friends, social circles, and so on. Now back to the biblical prophecies. I believe the same principles apply. We have to speak it like it is. We have to say things like it is. so that people will know. We don't tiptoe around biblical prophecy. We don't dance around. Okay, as long as we're not saying it in an obnoxious attitude, in an attitude that just, put everything and everybody down. Okay, we represent things as what we understand from the Word of God. We connect the dots, we present the scenario humbly. That's what I'm doing, and that's what all of us should be doing. Now, I'm going to show you a video. I'm in the mood of showing videos. Okay, I don't normally do that. Last sermon, I show a video. Today, I'm going to show you another video. And this video is also produced by the World Economic Forum. It is a shorter video, only about 1.5 minutes. And this video is entitled The 8 Predictions for the World in 2030. The 8 predictions for the world in 2030. Let's watch the video. Enjoy the video. Now, these are the predictions for the world in 2030 by a group of global elites. And the group is not a small group. It is a pretty big group comprising of thousands of people. But of course, there are a few people, a few leaders, okay, a small group of leaders that's leading the effort. So these are what they call the 8 predictions for the world in 2030. I think it is better to more appropriate to put it as the 8 goals. The 8 goals for 2030. The 8 goals for the world in 2030. These are the 8 goals of the World Economic Forum for the year 2030. Now, in a sense, this is a prediction of the global elites, but essentially they are the goals. They are their goals for the world in 2030. They want the world to look like that, what you have seen in the video. They want a radically transformed, a radically changed world by the year 2030. They don't like the present one. They want something different, something that is radically different. They've been envisioning and actively planning for these things to happen. They are working hard to realize their dream. So that's what the Great Reset really looked like. It gives you an idea of what the Great Reset really looks like. That's what they mean when they tell you that they want to reshape the world. And that's a bit of the aspects of certain aspects of what you will see in the coming new world order. Okay, let's recap the 8 predictions. 8 predictions, right? Or 8 goals. Let's recap them. The first goal, you own nothing and you'll be happy. Whatever you want, you'll rent and you'll be delivered by drone. Sounds very cool. Second goal, the United States of America won't be the world's leading superpower. A handful of countries will dominate. The third goal. You won't die waiting for an organ donor. We won't transplant organs. We'll print new ones instead. The fourth goal. You eat much less meat, an occasional treat, not a staple, for the good of the environment and our health. The fifth goal. 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change. We'll have to do a better job at welcoming and integrating refugees. The sixth goal. Polluters will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide. There will be a global price on carbon. This will help to make fossil fuels history. The seventh goal. You could be preparing to go to Mars. Scientists will have to work out how to keep you healthy in space. The eighth goal. Western values will have been tested to the breaking point. Let me repeat. The eighth goal. Western values will have been tested to the breaking points. Now, I don't know if any of these goals make any meaningful sense to you. I wonder what is your first reaction when you watch the video and watch all the 8 predictions that are supposed to be goals made by these global elites. Now, I'm not going to comment on the 8 predictions individually. I'm not going to go through one by one. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to group them, some of them together, not all of them, some of them together into the 3 groups, and then I will unpack what the World Economic Forum is actually saying, what they are really saying. A lot of things are certain things, a few things are said, but there are a lot of details behind, okay? And they are not making these details like they are not hiding it at all. They are telling you, okay? If you are watching some of those conferences given by the World Economic Forum, if you are reading what they have put out, if you are reading their website, they tell you exactly what is on their mind. They tell you, they elaborate on the goals. Okay, in many articles, they tell you exactly what they have in mind and what they are doing. Now, but before I do that, I want to pause here and take you to a passage in the Bible. Okay, and that is Daniel chapter 7. And we're going to read from verses 23 to 25. And thus he said, this is an angel speaking to Daniel. As for the fourth beast, there shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the other kingdoms, and it shall devour the whole earth and trample it down and break it to pieces. We talked about this in my last sermon, and we established the fact that without a doubt we can confidently say that this is the Roman Empire. This is the ancient Roman Empire. And then going on to verse 24, as for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings shall arise, and another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the former ones, and shall put down the 3 kings. Okay, and these, we go back to our last sermon, I told you that this will be the end times, the end of the present age, one world government. These 10 horns represent 10 kings, maybe 10 politicians or 10 very powerful people that will dominate the end time one world government. And the horn, okay, remember the horn, the 10 horns are 10 kings, and the horn, the little horn, that represents the Antichrist. That represents Antichrist. Now I'm reading these verses to provide the context that this passage is referring to the end of this present age, where the one world government will be established. So now let's go on to verse 25. He shall speak words against the Most High, the little horn. The Antichrist shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out all the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law. Let me repeat that. The Antichrist shall think to change the times and the law, and they shall be given into his hands for a time, times, and half a time. Now, the main thing that I want to point out is that in this passage, is that the Antichrist will try very hard to change the times and the law. Okay, and bear in mind that now, even before the emergence of the Antichrist, the spirit of Antichrist is already at work. Even for the last 2,000 years, it has been at work. But right now, as we are moving towards the climax of human history, as we are coming to the end of this age, the spirit of Antichrist is even more actively at work, furiously at work. And what the spirit of Antichrist will also try to do is to try to change the times and the law. The spirit of the Antichrist will try to change the times and the law. Now, what do we understand by changing the times and the law? Traditionally, Bible commentators will tell us that it's referring to changing the times and seasons of religious worship. For example, like the Jewish feast days. Okay, changing the times. Okay, in a Christian context, do you know that the Passover has been changed? Okay, changed to a Good Friday, from a lunar calendar to a solar calendar, and the resurrection day of our Lord Jesus Christ has been changed to the day occupied by the feast of Ishtar, a pagan feast. Okay, so this is what the Antichrist has been doing all the while. And people are saying at the end time, they will change even more of these days. And I think the reference is more towards the Jewish feast days and so on. And the spirit of Antichrist will also try to change religious law. That's what it is traditionally understood. If you go to commentaries, that's what they will tell you. But there's another way of looking at it. The time refers to the moods and the culture of our time. That's how I look at it. The times refer to the moods and culture of our times, the fads and the fashions, the trends. Now we say things like, these are the signs of time. Have you used phrases like that before? This phrase before? These are the signs of the times, implying that these are what people are into at this present time. These are what fascinates these people. These are the things that people are interested at this present time. These are their preferences. So the times refer to what society is like presently. And the Antichrist will try to change the times. As for law, it refers to laws in general, laws governing business dealings, laws governing society, laws governing trade and finance and everything, law in general. So, looking at this verse from this perspective, this is what I believe the passage is saying. The spirit of Antichrist will try to change two things. Number one, it will try to change the times. Or rather, let me talk about laws first. It will try to change the laws. It will try to change the laws that govern international relations, international trade and finance, international banking system, and the laws that govern societies, of course, and every other law that he can put his hands onto. The culture, it will try to change the culture. It will try to change our times. It will try to change our culture. It will try to change the ideas, the customs, and the social behavior of our society. That is, to change how our society thinks and considers what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. Let me give you a very quick example. So, throughout history, even while homosexuality is practiced, it is not considered acceptable. But in the recent 10 years, it has become acceptable. And if you are saying it is not acceptable, you are intolerant, you are a bigot. You get what I mean? Okay? So, by changing the times, by changing the culture, the Antichrist or the spirit of Antichrist will achieve its purpose. What is that all about? What does the devil want by making these changes. Now, many people don't realize laws and culture can be used as tools for control. Laws and culture can be used as tools for control. By controlling the laws and culture of a society, the government wields tremendous power over the nation and its population. I'm sure we all can agree to that. Similarly, by controlling international laws, regulations, policies, the global elites and institutions can easily control the nation. The one world government, the Antichrist in future, can easily control the nations. For example, countries that want to be a part of the international financial system, our present architecture, will need to abide by the laws, the policies, the regulations that are set up by the relevant global institutions functioning today. Otherwise, they cannot play the game. Otherwise, they cannot participate in international trade and finance and banking and so on. Am I right to say that? Now, that's the power of law. And by changing, the Antichrist controls. And this is what the spirit of Antichrist is trying to do. Likewise, if the globalists can spin, can we put it up? Likewise, if the globalists can spin a certain narrative or shape a certain global culture, they can wield a strong influence over the masses. Give you the same example of the LGBT. Do you know why the banks, the global banks, the multinationals are pushing for LGBT rights, emphasizing on it and getting their staff to attend meetings, sessions that sort of promote LGBT and so on? Because it has been enshrined into their policies. It has been enshrined into the rules and regulations. And this is what the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and the United Nations have been doing. The change in laws and regulations were effected up there earlier in 2018 and before. All these things are in their manifestos. All these things are in their website and all that. So it's not a speculation, because they change and they are forcing everybody, national governments, banks, multinationals, and all that to change. This is how it works. This is how the control mechanism works. So I want you to bear in mind this idea of control through laws and culture as I explore with you some of the WEF goals or prediction, if you like, for the world in 2030. The first point is the US won't be the world's leading superpower, and Western values will have been tested to the breaking points. These are the two predictions. I'm putting them together. Okay, let's read that again. The United States won't be the world's leading superpower, and Western values will have been tested to the breaking points. Now, like I said earlier, these are the globalists' goals. Not just a prediction, these are their goals. This is what they want to see in the world 2030. Now we know that China is rising, the star of China is rising, and no one can prevent China from becoming a global superpower in the near future. I mean, China is really a force to be reckoned with, whether you like it or not, okay? But to say that the US won't be a leading superpower in 9 years' time is an exceptionally bold prediction. No matter how you look at it, it is a very bold prediction. Why are these people so confident? But perhaps the question should be, is that surprising? Does that surprise you that America will not be a leading superpower by the year 2030? Does that surprise you? Not if you have been watching what is happening in the US in the recent years. And when you compare it to history, when you compare it to how the mighty Roman Empire collapsed, you see the similarities, you see the parallels, you see that the US is on that trajectory, and US as a superpower will collapse quickly. The superpower is imploding very quickly. It is destroying itself from within, very much like the mighty Roman Empire. Quite clearly, there is a deliberate and systematic dismantling of the US in recent years. Some observer called it a controlled demolition. And surprisingly, the sabotage is carried out by very powerful people in the US government, within the US bureaucracy, in the US government. They are known as a deep state. Okay, people who have been reading, you understand, they are known as a deep state. Now, these people are left-leaning in their political ideology. They are inclined towards socialism. They are part of the globalist network. Now, to these people, America doesn't mean anything. What they want to see is a new world order. What they want to see is a global government. Okay, in biblical speak, it's a one world government. That's what they want to see. And they are very open about it. So please perish all the ideas that this is a conspiracy. And they are openly talking about it in Australia, in the US. They are using the word a new world order, a one world government. They are talking about it. So please, this is not a conspiracy at all. And this deep state is abetted by politicians, left-leaning politicians, mostly politicians from the Democratic Party and the liberal, and also by the liberal mainstream media. The American universities and colleges have already been captured by left-leaning ideologies. Their professors in colleges and uni teach Marxist ideologies like the critical race theories. They've been quietly indoctrinating the young people for a few decades. The revolution doesn't just begin just like that in the last 5 years. It has been carefully planned. It has been carefully orchestrated. You think the LGBT agenda just popped up in the last 10 years? No. It has been planned. Okay? And the detailed plan was set up sometime in the early 1990s. So everything has been planned, everything is orchestrated, all at very high level. So when they change certain laws, push to change certain law, push to put liberal judges up there, I'm talking about the US, they change the law. Okay? They can come out with verdict that goes against the US Constitution. That's how they manage and to change things. Now, okay, if you're not following the American politics, you may not understand the things that I've said so far, but it is okay. But what's important for you is to know this. This deep state, left-leaning politicians, mainstream media, social media giant, academia, Hollywood, and big multinational corporations are all collaborating to fundamentally change and remake America. They are all collaborating to fundamentally change and remake America. Now, I'll very briefly tell you what these people are doing. Okay, I can only be brief because this is just one of the points. The abortion and the abortion issue and the LGBT agenda are not just moral issues. They are not just moral issues that affect the individuals. They are. The bigger agenda behind this campaign is to systematically dismantle the Judeo-Christian values and ethics on which is the foundation of the Western civilization, on which is the foundation of the free market capitalist system. The economic system that the world is functioning in the last couple of 100 years. Okay, it's the Judeo-Christian values and ethics that forms the foundation for all these ideas and ideology to function. So this is what they are doing. They are trying to dismantle the Judeo-Christian values and ethics. To these people, the church and the Christian beliefs are the main obstacles to finally to fundamentally remake America. And that's why Christianity and conservative ideas have been coming under constant and incessant attack. It is really to change beliefs, to change culture, to change what society would think is acceptable and unacceptable. And like what I always say, whatever happens in the US of America will happen in other parts of the world. And therefore, it is important to talk about America. And so, what is described as the culture wars in the US are actually wars to remodel the America into a godless nation. Now, I'm not saying America is a Christian nation, but the Western civilizations for quite a long time have been using, or rather they have the fundamental ideas of these Judeo-Christian values. So the idea now is to change, is to remodel the country, okay, into a godless nation. Europe, there's no need to do anything at all. Fundamentally, Europe has switched out of Christianity, has put away the Judeo-Christian values and so on, although a lot of these are still embedded in their thinking without them knowing about it. The social justice and critical race theory issues have also torn the country into pieces. It affects the military, it affects the government, it affects the schools, it affects businesses, it affects even churches. A lot of Christians in this part of the world are unaware. Christian churches in the US, okay, are fundamentally shredded apart right now by all this critical theory, cultural Marxism nonsense, okay, that fundamentally changed their theology. And I'm talking about mainstream organizations, even like Gospel Coalition. Okay, that's why I'm warning. I've been saying a couple of times, I'm warning. Please be very careful when you're reading articles from the Gospel Coalition, people like David Black, even people like Tim Keller. Okay, I'm issuing a warning. This is no mere speculation. This is true. This is what is happening there now. Schools are teaching children things such as white privilege, which means that if you are a white person, you must repent. You must repent of your whiteness because your ancestors have slaves, because the USA is built on slavery, garbage like that. There's a lot of cultural Marxism garbage like this in this whole nonsense. Parents are incensed that the kids are indoctrinated with all this nonsense. In recent times, an organization known as Black Lives Matters were allowed to organize riots and burn down businesses and buildings all over the cities across the United States. Billions of dollars went up the smoke. The strangest thing is that in many of these in these cities, mostly controlled by the Democratic Party, these violent riots were allowed to continue without police interference. Without police interference. And if there's any killing, there's any extreme violence, burning down a building is not considered violent. But if killing, if they have been arrested, immediately they have been released. Okay, even the city council members, even their governors and all that will chip in to bail out these murderers and killers. And then there were serious calls to defund the police. That means to do without the police department. Crazy things like that are happening in the United States of America. And millions of illegal immigrants have gone into the US through its southern borders in the last 9 months. Just the last 9 months alone, millions have gone into US illegally. Many people are scratching their heads and wondering why the US government would allow such a thing to happen. You have to think that this is intentional, this is a deliberate policy. Now, on the economic front, things are not going on well at all in the US. When President Biden took office in January, he immediately canceled the Keystone Oil Pipeline project for the reason of climate change. Cancel that for the reason. Why would the US government, why would the US president want to kill so many jobs with just one stroke of his pen? Why does he want to do that? Why would he want to sabotage the country's energy independence? Why would he want to do that? People have to start asking commonsensical questions. Now, the US government has also been approving trillions dollar budget, which can you afford? It has also printed trillions of dollars, okay, and flooding the banking system with cheap money. It says that 40% of the US dollar in circulation today are printed only in the last 2 years. That is a huge amount. That is, I've checked this fact, okay? It is a fact, it is true. And as a result, interest rate have plummeted to near or to 0%. Now, all these are happening while inflation is rising quickly, with the prices of consumer goods and commodity going through the roof. Now, you can see that the US is being intentionally and systematically taken apart culturally and economically. A superpower with many highly intelligent and highly qualified people cannot be doing so many stupid things at the same time. I can only think of one reason. This is a concerted plan to destroy America. It is a controlled demolition. And the question we have to ask is why? Why? Because the US stands in the way of globalism. The US government stands in the way of the march towards a new world order and a one world government. You see, many Americans are nationalistic, and many of them are aware of the global elite's plans. They are against the plans. Now, those 4 years under President Donald Trump has been the most problematic for the globalists. They invited him to speak in the UN and WEF. He categorically told them that he was for an American first policy and flatly reject globalism. Therefore, the US must be taken down. The remaining bastion of Judeo-Christian values must be sidelined. That is the plan. That is the goal. And hence, the predictions that America won't be a leading superpower and Western values will be tested to the limit in 2030. What I've told you, what I've just said, gives you an idea of the influence and power wielded by the global elites. It also helps you to understand the laws and culture are levers of control. By changing them, a society can be pushed into a new direction and a new normal. My dear brothers and sisters in Christ, I'm not preaching a typical sermon today. I talk about American culture and politics. The reason is without doing so, I cannot make the case that the global elites must weaken the US politically, economically, and culturally to establish the new world order and the one world government. The second point is you own nothing and you'll be happy. You own nothing and you'll be happy. I don't know what comes to your mind when you read the statement, you own nothing and you'll be happy. Now, my reflex reaction is the statement does not make sense. It is ridiculous. We all want to own something. We all want to have a good saving in our bank account. We all want to have good investment. And we can. And if we can afford a car and something else. Now, I don't have the time to talk to you concerning this, to talk extensively concerning this point. So I'll go straight to the point. Essentially, this is a call to socialism. This is a call to socialism, a form of Marxism and communism. This is an appeal to the utopian world of socialism. You will own nothing, meaning that there is no private ownership of anything, of property, of cars, of business, of investment, and so on. The state or the global government will own everything, and it will give you what you need. The appeal is you have no mortgage and no debt to worry. The one world government will take care of everything. Whatever you need, it will be provided for you. Whatever you want, you will rent it from the government. It will be delivered to you by drone. How cool? How cool is that? Now, Klaus Schwab, the founder of the WEF, called this stakeholder capitalism. He called this stakeholder capitalism, a nice sounding phrase. Now, Klaus Schwab wants to transform the current free market capitalism to stakeholder capitalism, where the government, transnational corporations, investment powerhouses, and other corporate entities are stakeholders. Private investors and shareholders will be replaced by these stakeholders. Now, never in history have communism and socialism been a good economic model. Joseph Stalin tried it in the Soviet Union. Mao Zedong tried it in China. Fidel Castro tried it in Cuba. And recently, Hugo Chavez tried it in Venezuela. Every attempt at socialism and Marxism failed monumentally and disastrously. Now, at the end of the day, the masses will suffer. At the end of the day, the masses will suffer. Only a handful of men sitting right at the top will enjoy the fruit of the system. So like socialism, communism, fascism, stakeholder capitalism will be a tyrannical system of government. There is no question about it at all. You own nothing and you'll be happy. You own nothing and you'll be happy. Don't be deceived. The global elites promise you an utopia, but they are taking you to a dystopia. They are promising you an utopia, but they are taking you to a dystopia. Now, this is the direction the spirit of Antichrist is aging the world towards. Now, I wonder whether these are coincidences. During the COVID-19 crisis, many private enterprises and small businesses around the world go bankrupt, while the wealth of big corporations rises significantly. In the US, cheap money has driven up property prices, while the ordinary people cannot afford to buy. Big investment firms like BlackRock have snapped up many residential property, paying 25 to 30% above the market price. BlackRock's intention is to rent out these properties. Are these examples coincidences? Or are we already very quickly moving towards the time when you own nothing and you will be happy. The third point is the climate change agenda. The third point is the climate change agenda. The fourth, fifth, and sixth predictions that you watched in the video earlier on, the fourth, fifth, and sixth predictions have to do with the climate change agenda. Let me read them again. You eat much less meat, an occasional treat, not a staple. For the good of the environment and our health, 1 billion people will be displaced by climate change. Polluters will have to pay to emit carbon dioxide. There will be a global price on carbon. This will help make fossil fuels history. Well, you can be sure that the climate change agenda will dominate the media headlines and our lives going forward. The global elites are big on this agenda. The WEF is on it. The United Nations is on it. Even the IMF is on it. Many Western nations are big on this agenda. And therefore, many other countries have no choice but to follow along. Okay, many other countries will have no choice but to follow along. Now, what is the big deal about climate change? What is the big deal about climate change? To be sure, the climate is changing. The truth is, the climate is always changing. But the globalists and climate activists are screaming their heads off, claiming that if nothing is done about it, the world will face an existential threat in the future. They're crying aloud. They're crying very, very loud. Now, temperature will increase drastically. The ice sheets in the Arctic will melt, causing sea levels to rise. Islands will disappear. Coastal and low-lying areas will be flooded. We all will die. Humanity will be wiped out unless we act fast. That's what they mean, okay? That's what they mean when they say that it is an existential threat. Climate alarmism is not new. Do you know that climate alarmism is not new at all? In the 1970s, scientists and politicians were unanimous in their view that the Earth was quickly heading towards global cooling. Now, we are too young, right? Most of us are too young to know that, but we can read it from books and so on. In 1975, Newsweek warned in an article, there are ominous signs that the Earth's weather pattern have begun to change dramatically, and that these changes may portend a drastic decline in food production with serious political implication to just about any nation on Earth. And then at the turn of the century, the pendulum swing to the other extreme. Al Gore and company began to warn of global warming. In the last 20 years, we heard dire prediction of global warming that never come anywhere close to materializing at all. Now, the climate is always changing. How many of us know that climate is always changing? The sun is always changing in various ways. And our distance between the earth and the sun goes through varying distances and so on. Climate is always changing. But for the global warming agenda, the blame is pinned specifically on carbon dioxide emission. The blame is pinned specifically on carbon dioxide emission from cars, factories, and bovine flatulence. That's a big word. Bovine flatulence. You know, some of you may say, wow, Pastor, such a big word. I purposely used a big word to get your attention. Bovine flatulence simply means the methane or the carbon emission from cows. It simply means that, all right, bovine flatulence. means the methane or carbon emission from cow. That is when cows belch a burp, or when they fart, when they let out gas, they release methane, they release carbon into the air. So that is why the WEF goal in 2030 is you will eat much less meat. They make it into a goal. You will eat much less meat. Why? Because it is good for the environment. The idea that it is good for the environment. That's what they say. You can't make this up at all. By your consumption of meat, you're guilty of contributing to carbon emission. That's what they are telling you. By our consumption of meat, we are contributing to global carbon emission, which raises the global temperature. So you better stop it. So you better stop eating beef. You better stop eating meat. Never mind, eat less meat because it is good for your health. Says who? Says who? I believe in a balanced diet. I don't know about you, but I believe in a balanced diet. Now, I can tell you categorically, that climate change will not be an existential threat. Climate change will not be an existential threat. How do I know that? I get it from the Bible. I get it from the Bible. After the flood that destroyed all humanity except for Noah and his family of 8, God promised that He will never destroy the world with a global flood again. Did God say that? God actually said that in the Word of God. He will never destroy the world with a global flood ever again. And He signed this off with a covenant. And there's a covenant sign. And that is a sign of the rainbow in the clouds. Every time you see a rainbow, it is a reminder that God's promise still stands. Therefore, we should not be fearful of the rising sea level due to climate change, causing an existential threat. I know a lot of young people are afraid. They think that their future has come under threat. A lot of young people are actually afraid. Because in schools, they talk about things like that in schools. And therefore, a lot of young people are stressed out. They are afraid. But you can trust the Word of God. God promised by giving Noah and humanity the sign of the rainbow that He will never destroy the earth again with a flood. And we can take God's word for it. There may be global warming, there may be global cooling, but it will not be an existential threat at all. When it comes to science, many top scientists don't believe that CO2 gas causes climate change. Do you know that most scientists don't believe that it causes climate change? It's only those that are involved in the propaganda. But they dare not say it. If they say something like that, their tenure in the university and all that may be terminated. And therefore, many of them are under threat, and therefore they keep quiet. Know that climate science is one of the most complex of all sciences because there are so many variables that cause the climate to change. It is actually one of the most complex sciences. Having said that, all climate scientists worth their salt agree that the sun, that is solar activity, is the main cause of climate change. Solar activity is the main cause of climate change, whereas the impact of CO2, of carbon dioxide on climate change is less than 1%. It is a scientific fact. It is less than 1%. So why are the global elites and some politicians warning about the risk of climate change? Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that it is an agenda, it is a propaganda. By spinning and controlling this narrative, they control the nations and the masses. It is all about control. My dear friends, it is all about control. How? Through the laws, through the regulations, and through policies. First, the WEF, the UN, IMF, EU, push the climate change agenda. They keep repeating it and insisting that it will result it is an existential threat. They keep beating the drumbeat over and over again. Then they follow up by pushing the nations to agree to cut their carbon emission by a certain amount by a certain date. Next, these global institutions incorporate climate change, climate-related terms and conditions in their policies. And then they push the national governments, they push the global banks, they push the multinational companies to adopt these policies. It is a very high-level agenda. Okay, bear in mind, this is a very high-level agenda. So, for example, if your company wants to take a loan from a bank, the bank will require a company to comply with these carbon policies, failing which you will not get approval for your loan. Not because your company has a weak financial standing, but because it doesn't meet the carbon emissions standard. Global institutions, companies, and banks have begun to use the ESG scorecard. I wonder how many of you have heard of the term ESG? Okay, some, not many people. We got to start cluing ourselves into some of these things. Okay, many companies, big ones especially, they are starting to use the ESG scorecard. E stands for environment, S for social, G for governance. The ESG scorecard measures your company's compliance in the area of environment, social, and governance. For example, under environment, what is your company's carbon footprint? Under environment, what is company's carbon footprint? Okay, has your company been involved in activities that releases a lot of carbons into the air? For social, does your company emphasize LGBT rights? Does your company emphasize transgender rights? Does your company even employ transgender? For governance, does your company have independent stakeholders besides shareholders in your board of directors? In time to come, if your company scores poorly in the ESG scorecard, it will face certain restriction and difficulty in raising capital for the business to continue on. Okay, just to give you two examples, all right? Now, what are these laws, regulations, policies, scorecards all about? What are all these things all about? What are all these things all about? It is about control. It is about control. That's how the globalists and the future one world government will control nations, corporations, and businesses. Individuals will not be spared. You think that, well, that is happening at the corporation level. But let me tell you that individuals like you and I, as individuals, we will not be spared. MasterCard. Okay, how many of you use MasterCard? There's American Express, there's Visa card. Okay, MasterCard has come up with a card that tracks and measures CO2 emissions associated with your purchase. Not that when you buy things, you emit CO2. Okay? CO2 emission that is related to your purchases. This card also puts a limit to the climate impact on your spending. Okay? Meaning to say that when they track your spending and they realize that in your spending, okay, there's a lot of the things that you buy, whether during the manufacturing process or during the usage, releases a lot of CO2 into the air. they'll put a limit, they'll put a cap there. And if you hit the cap, you cannot use the card. Okay, they will stop the card and then you cannot use the card anymore. Today, this carbon card helps you to track the CO2 emissions connected to your purchases. Okay, actually it's not to help you, to help them to track. Okay, in the future, it will dictate your spending based on your carbon footprint. It will track your spending based on your carbon footprint. Your card will be disabled when you hit a certain carbon limit. You may not have reached your credit limit. And then when you are buying something, okay, the purchase cannot go through because it hits a certain carbon limit. When you buy too much red meat, too much petrol, you travel too often, okay, a lot of your money is spent in traveling, air ticket, business travel, you travel too much, you contributed too much to the carbon emissions, and then your spending limit will be reached. Your carbon limit will be reached rather, and they will cut you off. Control. That's what climate change agenda is all about. It is the spirit of Antichrist at work, paving the way for the emergence of the Antichrist. Now the day will come when the nations and the masses will be digitally, legally, and culturally controlled, and our freedom curtailed. I'm predicting that day will come very fast. I'm not prophesying. I'm predicting that day will come very quickly. At the rate in which things have accelerated in the last 1 to 2 years, you will see things like that happening pretty soon. Welcome to the New World Order. You heard of the terms? You heard of the term before. Welcome to the New World Order. We are quickly moving in this direction. It will accelerate with the pace getting quicker and quicker. Before we know it, we'll find ourselves under totalitarian control. At that time, you will own nothing. And you will be, no, you'll not be happy. You'll be miserable. It is dictatorial control. At that time, you'll be happy and you'll be miserable. My dear friends, this is a conspiracy of the highest order, not a conspiracy theory. This is a real conspiracy. The end times, the emergence of the Antichrist, and everything relating to the end of the last days is very conspiratorial in nature. But these are real. We have to wake up to the fact of this reality. These things are very real. I'd like to close today's sermon by reading a few verses from Psalms number 2. Psalms 2, verses 1 to 3. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away their cords from us. Now the kings and rulers, these global elites, are not just conspiring against mankind. Essentially, they are conspiring against God Most High. They are not just conspiring against you and I. They are conspiring against the Lord God Almighty. They are conspiring against the Supreme God, our Lord, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. Like Nimrod, this global elite's plan is to build a global empire independent of God. That is their plan. Their compelling vision, carefully crafted plans, and slick slogans might have fooled many people, but God sees through their motives. God knows their wicked hearts and godless dreams. How did God respond? How do we think God will respond? God tells us in Psalms 2, verse 4, he who sits in the heavens laughs. The Lord holds them in derision. From our vantage point, the situation is very grave and very concerning. You listen to things like that, you get nervous, you get fearful. But God laughs. God simply laughs. It doesn't bother God at all. He laughs at their vain plot. He laughs at their conspiracy. God is always in sovereign control. That's why He can afford to laugh. He who knows the end from the beginning knows that these things will happen. And that's why we have the book of Daniel, we have the book of Zechariah, we have the book of Revelation. We have all the prophetic words in the Old Testament and the New Testament regarding the end of the days. God knows that all these things will happen. God knows that all these things is going to happen. And therefore He laughs. Psalms 2, verses 5 to 9. Then God will speak to them in His wrath and terrify them in His fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. I will tell of the decree. The Lord said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, and the ends of the earth your possession. You will break them with a rod of iron, dash them in pieces like a potter's vessels. You know, the global elites can plan all they want. The global elite can plan all they want. But God's purpose will be fulfilled. At the end, in the final conclusion, God's purpose will be fulfilled. Finally, Jesus will come as a mighty warrior. Jesus will come to utterly destroy His enemies. And then He will establish the kingdom of God. And all the kingdoms of this earth shall become the kingdom of our Lord and His Christ. At the end, Jesus wins. But we are living in this part of history. We are living in this part of time whereby we are quickly rushing towards the last 7 years. For me, I don't believe that we'll go through the tribulation. Some of you might disagree. It is perfectly fine with me. But the time leading up to the last 7 years of tribulation is not going to be easy. You'll be characterized by a lot of deception as the spirit of Antichrist try to take control and try to set the stage for the ultimate emergence of the Antichrist. So we have to be very, very careful. But don't be fearful. We know that as we look at some of these things, it may cause our heart to flutter a little bit. Flutter, not in love. Flutter in the sense of like, oh, you're nervous. Okay, but at the end of the day, God wins. At the end of the day, God wins. And you and I are not going to be, winning by being stoic, by saying that, no, don't worry. Whatever happened, I will stand firm. No, but we trust in the grace of God. We trust as God reveals all these things to us in His Word. And if we are faithful in Him, if we are faithful in Christ, God will lead us through every of these crises, and God will cause us to stand firm. God will cause us to be resilient until the end. The most important thing is our relationship with God. That is the key to survival during this time. Otherwise, as the Word of God warns, there will be a great apostasy towards the end. There will be many deceptions, many things disguised as good things that will come our way. And I can tell you that many Christians, many believers will blindly follow, and they will flow along, and they'll be deceived along the way. But God is faithful. If you are faithful in Christ, if you walk faithfully with Him, God is faithful. He'll be able to keep you until the day He raptures us. Okay, the day will come. And personally, I believe, it's a personal conviction, I believe that day is coming very soon. Amen. Can I invite all of you to stand?